This is Gemara Metziah Daf Kof Yod Zayin B'Siyata D'Shmaya. The final few daf of this incredible Masechta. We're holding on Kof Te Zayin Amid Beis. We're in the middle of the second white line, and today we're going to begin by really diving deeper into the case of yesterday. Yesterday we learned the Mishnah. The Mishnah taught us Havayis and Aliyah. We have two floors, one person living on top and the bottom. And the floor breaks, and the Mishnah taught us that the top guys ought to go live in the bottom guys. So we spoke out that the Mishnah has to be discussing where the owner lives in the bottom. Therefore, because he doesn't want to fix the floor of the top guy, he's allowed to come live in the bottom apartment. Now, today the Gemara begins in the second white line. Heichi dami. What is the case of the Mishnah? Ida amar aliyah. If the guy who lives on the top, Ida amar, if he says, Aliyah zu, I'm renting this apartment, Azda, then the apartment's no longer here, and therefore there's no reason why the owner, the landlord, has to compensate him. Meaning, we learned the Mishnah on a very superficial level. The floor breaks, you have to make good on your rental agreement so you can come live on the bottom. Says the Gemara, 1 second, what is the case particularly? If he said Aliyah zu, then the Aliyah zu is no longer here. So I feel bad for you, but that doesn't give you a right to live in my house at the bottom. So rather must be said to him, I want to rent an upper apartment. Says why the Mishnah implied that the top guy could come live in the bottom. Let the landlord say to him, I'll rent you another apartment. Why do you have to give him your apartment? Which of course we could understand. It's not as simple as saying an apartment's an apartment. Obviously not. So says the Gemara, why would that be the case? So Amar Rava, the case is where he said, Aliyazu shani maschel, this upper apartment which I'm renting you, kisalka salik behada. When it goes up, go up with it. When it goes down, go down with it. Meaning, when you have the upper apartment, you have it. When it collapses, you can come live in the bottom. He says, if there's almost a explicit or very implied agreement here, so what's the chiddush? Of course, he comes to live in the bottom. Elam Ravashi, no. He said, I'm renting you this upper floor on this house. Ani maschelcha. And then the halacha is because he mentioned the top, which is we're connected to the bottom, therefore it's mishabitun, and therefore that's why he's allowed to come and live on the bottom. Says the Gemara, bring your raya. The story that someone said is from Dalishal Gabi Parsek Zeh. This vine which is on top of this tree, I'm selling to you Vaneka Parsek. And the parsek, the tree, a peach tree particularly, was uprooted. In this case, you have to give him a peach tree, calls mancha kayama, as long as the vine exists. Because since you pinned one on another, you rented him the vine on the tree, you rented him the top floor on this house, therefore he has rights to claim that I want the bottom house, I want the tree. And that is where the Mishnah gets its din from. That is the pshat of Rav Ashi. Says the Gemara, Ba'i Rav Abba bar Mamul. Ask Rav Abba bar Mamul as we turn over to Kuf Yud Zayin Amna Aleph. Kishehudar levadai. 1 second. Whoa, my page is flying. 1 second, I apologize. There you go. Says the Gemara, Kishehudar. 1 second. When the top guy moves down to the bottom apartment, levadayu dark kara, is he have the rights to say, I want to live here by myself, like I lived on the top apartment? No, shneim darim, they both live together on the bottom floor. Damar lei, because the owner can say to him, I certainly didn't rent it to you that I should lose my own house. So ask Rav Abba Mamal, how far does the din in the Mishnah go? Says the Gemara, if you're going to tell me Shneim Dar, they live together. So now the next question is, is the upper guy living in the bottom guy allowed to walk through the front door, or Daragagim Mishamshin? Or maybe he has to go up to his upper floor and then come down through the ceiling into the lower floor. Explains the Gemara. Mi Amar Kidmeikara. It's like in the beginning, Ma Meikara Daragagin. You had to go through the ceiling because you had to go through the upper floor. Hashnami Darakagin al Domino. Matzi Amrle Aliyah Kabali Alai Aliyah Virida. Look, Kabili. It's true. When I lived in the upper floor, I was makabel to go up. So I had to go up. I never said I'm going to go up and down. So now let me just come straight into the lower floor. Im Tim Slammer, if you're going to tell me Matzi Amrle Aliyah Virida like Kabili Alai. Shtei Aliyah Zu Al Gavzu. Mahu. What is the halacha? If there are two upper apartments, it's a 3-story building, and he lives in one of the 2 upper stores, and so he's coming to live on the 2nd floor. Mau, what's the halacha if now the 2nd store falls through? Lemislik ligamri, mau lemislik gamri bel yaina. Do we require him to go all the way up to the 3rd floor? That just like you were makabel to go to the 2nd floor, now your floor came through. Okay, so now go up to the 3rd floor. Or you can say, no, I accepted myself to go up 1 floor, not to go up 2. Says the Gemara in all these cases, we're going to have to wait for Eliyahu Navi to resolve all these cases. Continues the Gemara, we're at the 2 dots. 20 lines down, Rabbi Yossi Oimer teaches Rabbi Yossi. Says Rabbi Yossi, that the halacha is you have to split the costs of the repairs. Says the Gemara, my tikra. What is this tikra that Rabbi Yossi says the tachton supplies? Different types of materials, which are literally reeds and thorns. Ustini Amar, that's his name. Reish Lakish Levachim. These are planks of wood. Says the Gemara, really loy pligi Amar Kisri. Each one is just going according to what they built within their place. Says the Gemara, Hanu Beitrei Davidar Echad 2 people living, one on top and one on the bottom. The plaster falls out, and now when the top guy washes with water, it comes down and it falls into the bottom guy. Who has to fix it? Simmon says the Gemara Metziah. The Rechir Bar Yosi is Hurad. He holds that the bottom guy fixes it. Whereas Rechir Bar Abba holds the top guy fixes it. And of course, anytime you see a simanim like this, which we bring down a pasuk that we all know, Yisuf Hurad Mitzayim, as a way to remember that in this machlekes, Rechir Bar Yosi that holds it's Hurad, it's the bottom guy. We realize that the world of simanim is not a new world. Obvious Torah precedents. And those who spend the time and those who don't just say, it's childish and it's silly and whatever, they realize that programs like Zichru are absolutely incredible. I'm to a massive fan. Started it by the Amid Yaimi Baruch Hashem. We fell off a little bit, but we plan on coming back. Siyata Dishmaya, definitely anyone who has a few extra minutes of their day, highly, highly recommended. Check out Zichru. They have an app, they have a WhatsApp, they have an email, they have a website. Mamish, amazing. But says the Gemara, back to our story in the first variable line, says the Gemara, are they arguing with Lukti Rav Yossi v'Rabbanan? That what kamifli? The man Damar attacking Kisavar Mazik Larchi says in a nizik. That if you say that the Elyon has to fix it, it's because the mazik, the one that is damaging, which over here is the guy in the top that the water's coming through, he has to distance himself in the nizik. Says the Gemara, what? Are they really arguing? We learned the opposite. That says the Mishnah that we've learned, and we will see again in Baba Basra soon enough. you have to distance the tree from the bar 25 amos. Ubacharav hashikma, if it's a sycamore tree, chamishim amma, bein mamala, bein minatzad. Ima bar kadam, kadseitz, v'nasein damim, ilan kadam lo yakutz. Safik zak kadam, safik zak kadam, lo yakutz. Everyone's dealing in their own fields. You have no reasons to move. So Amar Rav Yesi Savar and Mom, it's the exact opposite what we just said. So you're telling me it's dependent upon whether you hold an Izgal Masik, but we said they hold the opposite Shiitais. Says the Gemara, Ali Kameim al Pligi, Plug your Race Rabbanan, the Hasa Kamifli, a different machlokes. And says the Gemara, Rav Yisrael Rabbanan, the Hacha b'may Pligi. Okay, good. So that's what they argue about over there. What about by us? Says the Gemara, you know they argue about b'chayzek tikra kamifli. They argue about the case is who has to reinforce, has to give chizek to the tikra. Rabbanan Savri ma'aziva achzuki tikrahu. What does plaster do? A fundamental shaila. You know what it does, says the Gemara? It strengthens the tikra. V'achzuki tikra latachtan by lachzuke. And the bottom guy has the obligation to strengthen the tikra, and therefore he's the one that doesn't have to pay. Rav Yesi Savar Maziva Shvuye Gumusu. No, the plaster doesn't strengthen it. It just makes it smooth. And who's the one that benefits from the smoothness? That's, of course, the top guy, that his floor is flat. Says Gemara, Amy, is this true? Says the Gemara, 1 second. I Rav Yossi Moed Begiri delay. You're the one causing direct damage. You, the top guy, your water is coming directly down. So of course he should be obligated. Answers Gemara, no, it's not direct. Why is it not direct? Because the case is the Paski Maya, the water sits there and then it comes down. So it's not direct damage. Therefore, there we could have this machlokes. We continue with the Mishnah on the bottom of Kuf Zayin Amid Aleph. Abayis Aliyah Shel Shnayim. Now we have an upper floor and a ground floor owned by two different people. Classical, two different apartments, two different people. Shenaflu. Now the floor collapses. Amar Balaliyah Lebalabayis. Livnos, you should fix it. But when he writes those, he doesn't want to. Haribalaliyah Boines Abayis. Vidar Mitaicha. So the Balaliyah could go, rebuild the bottom, and live in the bottom one till the bottom guy pays him for that which he did. Rav Yehuda, no. Even this guy, if you live in your friend's house, you have to pay him. He rebuilds both. Mikra es aliyayna, v'yoshev abayis achitin loy es yitzi yosef. He builds both, and v'yoshev, he builds both, and mikare es aliyayna, he builds a roof even over the top, v'yoshev abayis, and then he can stay in the bottom until he pays it, but he has to build both. So an interesting case over here, that we have two people that both are losing their houses. Both of them have a problem. It's one guy's roof and one guy's ceiling. But when the roof collapses, one guy's roof and one guy's floor, not ceiling, that's the same thing. But when that collapses, the question is, who's the one that has to pay? And now both people are out of home. So it says the Mishnah, we have a machlokes between Rav Yehuda and the Tanakama. So it says the Gemara, Omar Rav Yechanan. Three times Rav Yehuda taught us the following yisoid. You're not allowed to benefit from the mammon of your friend. Chadaha. Number one is what we just saw, the Tanan. The Rav Yehuda said you cannot benefit from your friend. Vedach mahi, what are the other two places? The Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah. Hanoisein semer litzava, baba kamba days. Someone gives wool to the dyer, to dye it red, and he dyed it black, or shachar, he gave it to dye it black, and and dyed it red. Rabbi Meir says, Rabbi Meir, nice late to mate Samaroi. Rabbi Yehuda Meir, no! Im Hashem, nice late to And my Metziah, he says, Shevach, no, says Shevach. So what do we see? Rabbi Yehuda says you can't benefit from your friends. You can't just pay the Demeit Samroi, because that would be a form that you're being met. Therefore, you have to calculate which is more, and you get the difference. And the third one is Ve'edach Ma'i, the Tanai we learned in the Mishnah. Mishapara makes us chayvai. Someone paid a part of a debt. V'hishlish eshtaroi, and he gave the shtar, the document for this loan, to a third party. V'amar he told him, Im ein ani noisin l'cha bekan v'ad zman ploini. If I do not give you the remainder, if I don't pay up from now until zman ploini, ten lo yishtaroi. Give him back his shtar. I'm forgiving the rest of the loan. V'yigia zman v'loi nasan. The time came, and he did not pay the remainder of the debt. So now the question is, should he give the shtar back to the lender? And again, this is the shtar that's proving that he paid part. So now he's going to be losing a lot of money. Let's say it was a $1,000 loan. He paid up $500. He said, if I don't pay the other $500, give it back. Now he's going to be re-obligating himself the 500 again. Rav Yisrael Yitin, he gives it. Rav Yudah, no, lo yitin. You don't give it. Says the Gemara, because in this case, again, Rav Yehuda holds that you should not give it to him because you don't want to benefit from the property of your friend. Says the Gemara, so we have three cases, and Rav Yochanan learned that the chotam mishulash, that the thread running through these cases is what? That you are not nana mimam chaverai. Asks the Gemara 15 lines down. The first line is Amai. Amai, what is the reason that from here we learn Rav Yehuda holds you cannot benefit mimam and chaverai? Asks the Gemara, Tel ma'ad kan lo kamer Rav Yehuda hacha el misham di'ikashak risa. Maybe Rav Yehuda only said his case. In our case, it's because there's a loss. There's the blackening that happens when you live in someone else's property. Inema. Or maybe in the second case, it's also not because you're not benefiting from your friend, but he was mishani, he deviated from what he was supposed to do. And finally, in the third case, it's because it was an asmachta or line. So says the Gemara, and as much as Rav Yochanan thought to learn that the aside of these three cases is not to be nana from your friend's property, proves the Gemara that is not necessarily true, as each case could have another reason why Rav Yehuda is paskening that way. With that, we continue. First one line is Rav Acha, smack in the middle of the Amid, Amar Rav Acha, bar Ada Mishmei Deula. Rav Acha bar Ada says in the name of Ula, going back to the din of the Mishnah. Tachtain haba l'shanes. If the Tachtain wants to change, he wants to do shiputzim, renovations on his bottom apartment. Bigvil shaimanlai. If he wants to build his walls with gvil, which are unhewn stones, he's allowed to. Begazis, but if he wants to build them with hewn stones, even though prior they were not, ein shaimanlai, we don't listen to him. Bekfitza, we're going to have a whole list over here. Shaimim Lai. Bilaveinim, Ein Shaimim Lai. If he wants to build with half-side bricks, we don't listen. We listen to him. If he wants to build full-side bricks, we do not listen to him. And the basic idea over here is all these cases, and we don't necessarily build the way that they built with Zan Chazal, so it's a little bit challenging to understand. But in all these cases, if he wants to build in a better way, then he's allowed to. If it's a weaker way, we do not allow him. If he wants to put the ceiling with beams of cedar wood and not sycamore wood, we allow him. Let's explain that case. That's an easy one. If you have less walls, the structure is sturdier. So if the bottom guy wants that, then great. If he wants to put more walls, which is going to weaken the structure, then we do not listen to him. Lahagbiya ein shaymim lai. To raise the eye, we don't listen to him. That's the tachton. Now, what about the opposite? Elyon shvel chanais. And now this is going to be the exact opposite. Because before, all the reasons were it's weakening the bottom. Now, anything that weakened the bottom would be, but why? Because it's not as strong. To put that on the top would be okay. Because is shaymim lai. Bigvil, in shaymim lai. Similarly, Bikfitzin ain't Shemle, Belevin and Shemle, Barazin ain't Shemle, Bishik and Shemle, the Rabbis Chalon and Shemle, the Ma'ibit Chalonais ain't Shemle. Again, let's explain that case. That's the easiest one to understand. If you have more windows on the top, it makes it lighter. The bottom guy is happier. Like so those are all the cases, top versus bottom. Says the Gemara, and with this we're going to conclude. So the house fell, and neither the top guy nor the bottom guy has the means to rebuild. What is the halacha? Who gets the karka? Says the Gemara Tanya. We learned in a brayso Rabbi Nassan Aimer. Hatachta noital shnei chalakim ve'alyon shlish. The tachta takes 2/3 and alyon takes 1/3. Says the Gemara Amar Rabba, and it's whether it's a machlekes or not depends on the gears over here. Amar Rabba. 1 second. Excuse me. So machlekes is 2/3 versus 1/3, or 3/4 versus 1/4. Amar Rabba Naka de Rav Nasan, 2/3 and 1/3. V'yalcha de Dayanahu v'nachas omka de Dina, because he's a Dayan and he went to the depth of the din. Kasavar kama mafsed aliyah b'bayis tilsa hilkach islay tilsa. The reason he figured this out is how much does a single-story house reduce? There's an apartment on top of it. It's reduced by 1/3. So the bottom guy, the fact that we had an apartment of his, his value was reduced by 1/3. Therefore, he has to give him 1/3 of the karka. Pick it up from the Mishnah, B'siyata Dishmaya.